This is the devlog for the weeks of July 3rd and July 10th for Abstract Violence. Well, Abstract Violence for now at least. During the first week, the main thing that I worked on was 10 new attachments. So these are modifications for guns. However, with these I aim to do more than just modify the damage or the fire rate like I did with the first modifications. I started off fairly small, like simple damage buffs or changes to reload, things like that. But with these, they were more significant. We have, for example, a grappling hook, which unfortunately I wasn't able to find in a game in a reasonable amount of time, but here playing around in the practice room, you can see that you can jump around and it propels you towards whatever you shoot it towards. This took a decent bit of trial and error to make sure it wasn't too strong or too weak, but it's in a pretty decent place now. There are also upgrades that significantly slow down the player, but add additional damage and range, or ones that enhance the ability to dash more frequently. There's also some modifications for critical hits, which were not in the initial design of guns, but now are. So that was what was worked on last week. This week, however, there was a major change for not only the look of the game, but the feel of the game as well. I'd not been quite happy with the theme of art or abstract art. It was okay. It was working for like the menus and stuff like that. I didn't feel a strong drive for it. It didn't feel that interesting, and it never came out looking that good, especially trying to do textures, which was where this came from. I was working on a texture for an obelisk for a damage test, and it just wasn't working. So the music that I've had has been inspired by Hotline Miami or synthwave, and I decided to try to embrace that for the visual style for the game. So what we have here is not what it's going to look like in the end, but something close to it. Neon everywhere, basically just the grid was going to be neon, where we're going to have this like neon colors, pink and blue and green, changing all of the sort of colors from, instead of the very base level blue, black, white of composition, to something more visually interesting. And I was changing the effects as well, trying to just add more juice to it, add more excitement. This is still very much in the process of it, but this is also going to result in a name change for the game. The temporary one that I'm looking at is Outrun Gun. So Outrun is actually the name of a musical genre inspired by synthwave, or another name for it depending on who you ask. And then Run and Gun, of course, is a classic video game genre. So that's what we're aiming for at the moment. I've done a decent amount of work just doing research on sort of other games in this style, and Far Cry Blood Dragon you'd think would be sort of the archetypal example for this, as it is very 80s inspired. But it's not quite the visual style I'm looking for, so I'm still experimenting with style and exactly what it looks like, the colors and things like that. But what I'm presenting now is just a sort of example. So here now is what it looks like for now, but it's all temporary. This does include things like changing the clouds, for example. Now we're aiming for more of a star look, and all of the tiles and such have stars as well, as that's a common visual theme in synthwave art, but also just adds a bit of texture. Gives it that oomph, as opposed to just black squares with grid lines, which I think makes it look interesting. And of course with the graffiti objects, the thing that you can paint, they need to be white as a base. So we've got that contrast between the non-paintable objects, which are black, and the paintable, which are white. Some of the grids have a bit of a strange interaction with the colors, so I'm still working on exactly what I want to do for the colors and the size of the grids, and lots of little details that are still up for debate and change, but for now this is the look we're going for. For the next week I'm going to continue developing this look, working on the text and sound effects and just everything, trying to make a coherent visual style as well as palette for the colors and text. And then I also need to redo the menus, at least try to create a structure for how they're going to look, because while the modern art was fine for what it was, now we're doing something different. We're going to take inspiration from things like Smash Bros. Melee menus, or maybe Hotline Miami with a bit of a moving back and forth, bit wavy. As I've said before, menu work's not my favorite, but I think this will at least be interesting as we're creating something a bit different. I hope you've enjoyed this look into the development of this currently untitled game. We'll go with Outrun Gun for now, or Abstract Violence as the previous title, either way, and that you have a lovely week.